All right, guys, welcome back to episode 4 of the Pathways podcast. Today, we're going to be talking college football, strictly college football. We're going to probably bring you guys one episode for NFL a week and college football per week. So today, we're going to be talking about, the ins and outs, some teams we like, some bets we like. And I'm going to let Trey jump right into it, not take too long here with the introduction. And if he's ready, we can just fire into this thing.
Yeah, I'm ready to go. Let's hit college football headlines to start it off. Pat McAfee announces he's joining the college game day crew. For me, it's not entirely shocking. Dude was absolutely electric 2 years ago when he was kind of a part-time host when Lee Corso was out for a couple weeks. I remember, and I'm sure most people remember, he jumped into the Brazos River just outside of Baylor Stadium. That was an electric clip. He'll be stepping away from the WWE for a while, which doesn't affect me. I know some people care about the WWE. I am not one of them. I'm sure he'll be back probably for WrestleMania time, which is like the only thing I ever watch of them. But he announced he'll be in Austin this week for the Bama Texas game on Saturday. And my question for you, Hunter, is he seems like a logical replacement for Lee Corso in a few years when Lee steps away.
Yeah, McAfee is just entertaining in every aspect. I heard the other day that Ryan Clark has the number one sports podcast in the world. And I'm
Hmm.
thinking to myself, if McAfee considered his show a podcast, it wouldn't be close, but it's a
Yeah,
show.
yeah.
He's just very entertaining. He's hilarious. He knows what he's talking about. I mean, one of his best friends is Aaron Rodgers, who he
Hmm.
brings on his show every Tuesday. That's back now. And just throwing him into the college world just going to make it that much more interesting, in my opinion, at least. So I'm excited for it. I'm very glad that that is happening.
No, I think he like you said, he's very knowledgeable about the sport of football and he knows a lot of ins and outs. But I think he's just so much more of an entertainer than
Yeah,
anything like that show has right now. They have great minds on the cast, but he'll bring that entertainment aspect. He'll pull out something every week to keep you entertained. Uh,
absolutely.
with the second headline, Dabo Sweeney signs a 10-year, $115 million extension with Clemson. Contracts worth 11.5 million a year, and it runs through the 2031 season. Only Nick Saban and Kirby Smart have a higher salary. I get it. Clemson, they've been good, but the timing seems a little bit weird after they kind of struggled to pull away from Georgia Tech, who's not really supposed to compete in the ACC. So I get it. Dabo, he's done some good things there, but it was now the right time, or should they have waited to maybe he, was in the when it was in the title race for the ACC?
So I figured that we would be talking about this, and the first thing that came to my mind was, what has he done to prove it besides having Lawrence and Watson, who both are Watson was elite and at one point probably considered top 6 in the NFL, and Lawrence is on his way. I think so. He's coming. I just don't know when. Let the pieces get there, but he's coming. I want to see what he does without like those upper echelon guys. And I get it. Every coach needs their players,
Hmm.
but he hasn't proved to be worth that type of money yet, I don't think. So if it were me, I would have waited, but I guess time will speak that story itself.
No, I figured he would have an extension because he did have a good run there, but I figured after last year and a slow start against Georgia Tech last week, I figured they'd kind of make him wait a little bit, prove something, beat a top tier, beat NC State, beat Wake Forest, beat those teams that you need to beat in the division first, and then we'll give you your extension. And our last headline for this week, obviously the biggest one, college football playoff expanded to 12 teams by 2026 or earlier. Thing I didn't like about it, Hunter, is that the top 4 seeds will be determined by the highest ranking conference champion. What if you got a Georgia team that's ranked third in the country, but the fourth highest ranked conference champion is like Stanford, who pulled an upset over USC or something crazy? I mean, in the future, I guess USC will be in the Big Ten, but one of those type deals. Shouldn't they just go 1 through 12? Like take top 4 teams, get a bye, and go from there?
Yeah, so I love the concept that they're going for. Just the idea of it doesn't really make a lot of sense. The point you made about Georgia and like a Stanford or something, that's such a great point because I'm not trying to see Georgia, who's ranked 4th, but they lose to Alabama, who's ranked 1st or something like that in the SEC championship, get bumped out because they didn't win the SEC, and they're sitting at like a 5 spot in this playoff bracket. So I don't like that. A lot of teams are going to end up. I could see that being like a strategy, though. Like if you're going to win the Natty and you know you're going to get in if you lose SEC championship, let's say, and you're going to have an easier path doing that.
Yeah.
Why not do that? Like, so I think that there's got to be some type of change there. I know it's not completely finished yet, but it seems like they're pretty stern on that role. So I'm not huge on it myself. I love the idea of 12 teams. I just don't like that next part that comes with it.
The one part I did like is the top 4 teams will get a bye, and then seeds 5 through 12 will play in a first round. Those first games will be played at the home stadiums of the higher seeds.
So I like that.
So home field advantage will come into play. That's a huge thing in college football already. So I like that. Those teams, if you're on the fringe of the top 10, you're going to be pushing to try to get one of those home spots. You might have to start pouring on points against a team where when you're up 20 in the second half, you might have to try to get up 40 to make your record more impressive. But no, I love this idea of going to 12 teams. I have some stats here. Since the inception of the college football playoff format, only 13 different teams have made the college football playoff. 13. That's 10% of FBS schools. If you go back over those 8 years and make it a 12-team format, 32% of FBS teams would have made it in. That's 41 schools. That's just so much better competition. And really, we're in a point in a day and age where your season, if you're like a bigger program, your season's defined whether you make it to the playoff or not.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you can give that to a selling point to a recruit now.
Yeah.
So many more teams can give that. Hey, you want to play in the college football playoff? Come here. We have a track record of being there. So I like that. I think it'll help recruiting for those schools that aren't Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State. So
yeah, I love this idea also because then you got a school like the year Central Florida was very good and they were saying like we should have been there. Then we're gonna get to see them be there. Like so, I want to see that so that way there's nobody complaining essentially, and we're gonna see which school deserves to be there, whether it's Alabama, Ohio State, Georgia, Clemson, USC. We're going to get to see them all. And so I'm here for it. Definitely.
Last year, Pitt was great, but they were the 12th. They would have been the 12th seed and they would have had to go to play in Georgia.
Yeah.
And another rule I actually liked with the college football playoff is teams, if you play at like a smaller stadium, you can elect to play at like a local stadium that's bigger. So just say, I don't know even know how big West Virginia Stadium is, but they can elect to play, if they get the clearance, they can play at Heinz Field. If they want to, you know what I mean? They can get, as long as they get the clearance from Heinz Field people, but they can play in a bigger venue just as long as they get the clearance. So I thought that was cool. So I guess if you have like a smaller school that they're going to have their whole fan base come out to the game and they don't have enough room, they'll go to a bigger stadium. So I like that too.
I like that as well. Yeah, definitely.
All right, so now we're going to jump into our next segment. It's a new segment called Who's Got That Dog in Them? Each of us are going to take 3 underdog teams this weekend, give some reasons why they might pull the upset. Big upsets in college football are the most electric part of it. You never know what can happen. Teams, you look at it in the line, they're 30-point favorites. Saturday afternoon comes, hey, it's a 1-score game in the fourth quarter. You never know what can happen in college football. So with that being said, I will throw it over to Hunter for his first team that has that dog in them.
So my first team that has that dog in them is Texas against Alabama. And I know it's Bama, man. Like at the end of the day, it's Bama. I'm not saying go out there and throw the house on Texas money line. So don't get it misconstrued. But the atmosphere in Austin there, that's football.
That's going to be big.
That's football.
Well, when you got Bama rolling into town, you got to pull out all the stops.
Exactly. You got to pull out every trick you got. And they're going to want this one. And for once, I would say this is the best quarterback they've had in years, better than Ellinger as well. Quinn Ewers, I know he didn't have the greatest week 1, but if he starts clicking, look out, man. Dude is special. Let him click.
I really, really, really love Texas, especially with that atmosphere. College game day is going to be there, as we just talked about with McAfee. Big hype around the game. Texas, it's a football state, so I love that one in the Texas Longhorns.
That's easily the biggest game Texas has played in like 5 years.
For sure.
They need. I don't know if they need to win that game, but they need to keep it within the number.
Yeah.
To get some respect.
Yep.
My first team who's got that dog in them is Old Dominion. They upset Virginia Tech last week. They're on the road to your East Carolina Pirates. This East Carolina is the better team. On paper, East Carolina is the better team. They played fantastic against NC State. They deserved to win the game last week. Absolutely. This is a letdown spot for them. They wore their heart on their sleeves last week. They got so up for that game. They had it in their hands, and the kicker blew it. It's too much. College kids, I'm telling you, Monday and Tuesday, they're going to be like, dude, I can't believe we lost. They're not going to be ready by Saturday to go out and play that game and take it to an ODU team who they should beat probably just with talent.
Yeah.
And you also ODU's riding high. They have 17 starters returning. I think this is a solid football team. I saw Herb Street. He had them as like the number one team, right? Not number one team in the country, but the number one team after week one, just because of how they played. Not one on one in the rankings, but his number one team playing football right now.
Yeah, I mean, I like that one definitely. I don't have much to say towards it because East Carolina is going to be defeated after last week. Still, they're going to probably come out flat, would be my guess, and just not wanting to be there. Still thinking about that loss.
Yep.
So with my second one, I have, and this one might not be too popular, but Pitt over Tennessee. Tennessee's 6.5 point favorite, I believe, or 5.5 point favorite heading into Pittsburgh. And I get it, it's in Pittsburgh, but Slovis did not look horrible. I should have retracted my statement.
I was going to say,
I was bitter. I was bitter, but he didn't look horrible. He showed that he can be composed. There was a point where you texted me and said he's seeing ghosts, and he absolutely was. There's just no doubt about it. But Slovis and Hooker are both really solid quarterbacks. Tennessee's defense is like Swiss cheese, though. Pitt's defense is going to win them that game, I think, outright. They're going to beat them. And not to mention, the Pitt fans, they always have a ton of empty seats. Well, last week against West Virginia, they did. There was an empty seat in the house. They had over 70,000 in attendance. So hopefully that win maybe triggered something for a lot of people to pack in and see another top, matchup. We got two top 25 teams going at it. I don't know if it's going to be quite the atmosphere it was, not even close probably. But I'm riding with Pittsburgh here. I love Pittsburgh if they're not going to beat them, they're going to cover a spread. We'll touch into that later, but I think that they could very well win that game.
I think you're going to see a lot of orange in that Heinz Field crowd come Saturday.
Really?
Tennessee fans will travel. SEC fans will travel. It's not that far. Tennessee's not crazy far from southwestern Pennsylvania. So, and it's not like tickets aren't available.
Yeah, no, you could get them for sure.
All those West Virginia fans that bought the season ticket package because they had to for that one game, they'll call up all their Tennessee buddies. Hey, you want tickets for week 2? Yeah, here. So, I think it's not gonna be the same crowd, not even close, as it was against West Virginia. But I don't hate your pick. I'll get into that a little bit later when we break down the big games.
Yep.
My second pick, Georgia Southern heads to Lincoln to play Nebraska. Nebraska has looked terrible from the start of the season. They lost an ugly game to Northwestern and Ireland. Last week, it was a tight game with North Dakota. Yikes. Not North Dakota State.
No, North Dakota.
North Dakota. I think they're like the Flying Eagles or something. Not even just the plain Eagles. They had to add the flying in there.
That's nice.
Clay Helton's the head coach of Georgia Southern. He's a former USC head coach. He's been around the block, knows what he's doing. Kyle Van Treese is a transfer quarterback from Buffalo. He threw for just shy of 400 yards and 4 touchdowns last week. The offense scored 59, but it was against Morgan State. It wasn't it wasn't a great competition, but people are probably saying, okay, well, Nebraska has a much better defense than that. That's true, but they also gave up 5.3 yards a carry to North Dakota.
Yeah.
You might think that Georgia Southern and North Dakota on the same line. It's not. Georgia Southern is a much better football team than North Dakota. I have a name to watch out for, Derwin Burgess Jr. He's a sophomore receiver. Kid is a playmaker, had a crazy one-handed catch against Morgan State. Watch for him to make a big play.
Yeah, no, I don't mind that one at all. Nebraska is terrible. So they're just awful. I miss when I never even got to like see it personally, I don't think, besides like, old reruns and stuff. But my dad tells me stories about how Nebraska used to be like dominant.
Killed people, yeah.
Yeah. So I have no issues with that at all. With my next one, I'm gonna go with South Carolina against Arkansas. So this one's interesting to me, but it's not necessarily that I thought Arkansas played bad and South Carolina played good. It has nothing to do with that from last week. Arkansas, had two of their starting DBs leave the game injured, and their status is still up in the air. They may not play. And plus, Rattler had a bad-ish game last week, but we've seen it when he was at Oklahoma too. Any given week, that guy can just pick and just flick a light switch, and he can just go off. And I'm thinking if those DBs don't play and Rattler sees that and he starts just getting a little confidence, it's a confidence issue more than anything. The talent's there. The athleticism's there. It's just I feel like his confidence is not good after what unfolded in Oklahoma, so he's trying to get that back. With those DBs not being there, I think it's a very, very dangerous trap game for Arkansas. I would highly advise staying away from it, and we'll touch into that later, but I think South Carolina very well could pull off that upset.
I don't hate your points about South Carolina's offense going against an injured Arkansas defense, but I don't know who's on South Carolina defense is going to stop KJ Jefferson. KJ Jefferson looked like a man on a mission in week one against a good Cincinnati team. Cincinnati proved that, they're not the team they were last year, but they're not far off. They still have some good players on that team. So I think KJ Jefferson, I don't hate the over. I'll have to check what that line is for the over, but I think both offenses to have a good day on Saturday.
Yeah.
My last and final team that has that dog in them is the Kentucky Wildcats.
Okay, I'll have something for you here.
They're 6-point dogs in the swamp. Let's start off with Florida got lucky to beat Utah. They got lucky.
Whoa, I agree.
They got lucky to beat Utah. Okay.
Believe me, I was devastated, so I agree.
This is also I talked about the ODU East Carolina letdown spot. This is also a letdown spot for Florida. If you don't even watch the last play of the game, watch what happened after the last play of the game. Florida went nuts. Their players went nuts. Beating the 7th-ranked team week one at home. They just got put back on the national radar. They're flying high. They're going to come in and just thinking, oh, it's just Kentucky. They're ranked 20th. We're ranked 12th. Let's go. They're going to come in a little too confident after beating Utah. Kentucky is going to run the ball down their throat. I don't know if Chris Rodriguez Jr. is going to be back because I think he's suspended. But Kentucky, I just think Kentucky's a better football team all around. Florida has good pieces. Anthony Richardson is a solid quarterback, very good quarterback. Defense is solid. Kentucky's not going to lose by more than 6 points. I think it's close the entire game. I'll give the advantage to Will Levis, who's going to be probably a second-round draft pick here coming up in April.
Okay. So, no, I mean, I don't hate it. It's SEC football. Anything can happen in games like that. I get it. I'm solely putting my stock into Anthony Richardson over Will Levis. That's what it's coming down to for me. I don't care. You'll hear me every week. I don't care if this guy's in the Heisman race. Every week, I'm telling you this dude stinks and he drinks mayo with his coffee. Okay.
So if he throws for 600 yards against Georgia, he still stinks?
If that happens, I will oblige.
Okay.
But that's not going to happen.
It has to be 600 yards, though, right?
I'd say 4, and if they win the game.
Okay.
Which won't happen either. Yeah,
we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, he stinks. So that's how I feel about that.
All right, now it's time for the weekly draft. This week we are hitting up college football rivalries. Should be an interesting one. Douglas is going to go first, and I think I know where he's going with his first one.
Absolutely do. You absolutely do. Though I shouldn't pick it.
Yeah,
but,
I mean, it would be interesting if you didn't.
No, I'm going to take it. Ohio State and Michigan. I mean, dude, this rivalry, I'm already looking forward to this game. I'm overlooking everyone on Ohio State's schedule. I am. I could not care less because I don't see them losing to anybody potentially besides them. And that hurts me to even say because I can only remember one time in recent history them beating us, which is last year, the Hassan Haskins game. He just went nuts. So Ohio State, Michigan absolutely is going to be my first pick in this draft. It's not close. A lot of other ones that if I weren't so biased, I would have definitely liked to get, but I think they will be there and I'll be able to grab a couple on the second and third, fourth and fifth round.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of knew that was coming, to be honest. When I thought of the idea of doing the rivalry draft, I kind of knew since you had the first pick, where you'd be going. I think you know where I'm going.
Yep,
it's the Iron Bowl. It's the most important game in all of college football. It's the biggest game in the biggest conference. Alabama doesn't play Georgia every year. If they did, that would be the biggest game, obviously. Yep. Only my lucky Auburn Tigers get to play Alabama and Georgia every single season, even though Georgia's in a different division. I hope when Oklahoma comes over, it changes. But yeah, it's a game where I think people just go in every year thinking, oh, Alabama's going to win. Nobody plays Alabama tougher than Auburn.
I agree.
I miss Gus Malzahn for that one reason. He would do a lot of dumb things throughout the year, keep games tighter than they should be, but he always had a game plan for Alabama. He was always the guy that I trusted. When we went into Alabama week, I knew I could trust Gus to at least keep us in the game. So, but I mean, it's so much different than Michigan, Ohio, because you're separated by a lake, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you have literally one fan base here, one fan base there. You have one state that's split down the middle. You have households split in the state of Alabama that hate each other and will talk crap 364 days a year after they win that game. So, and being little brother in that game isn't always fun, but when you get the win over big brother, it feels really nice.
Absolutely. I mean, great pick. I figured that's where you would go as well, both knocking out the biased ones. If I didn't take mine, I feel like you wouldn't have taken yours right there because you knew that at some point I was going to take mine and not yours. But with my second one here, little different, but this one's sentimental to me a little bit. I'm going to go Army Navy.
Yeah, I had that one too.
So my dad and I don't really get to watch a lot of college football anymore just because our schedules aren't correlating. And, I'm not like a kid anymore, just got shit to do or, excuse me, he has things to do or whatever it would be.
There we go.
So basically, that is one game whenever they play, we will try and set aside time to watch that together. And it's always a good one, I feel like. It's never one-sided usually that I can remember at least, but it's always a great game. So I'm going to go Army and Navy with the second one here.
That's a great pick. My top three went Iron Bowl, Ohio State, Michigan, Army, Navy. So I think you're right on track with the rivalry games. I'm going to go with one we just saw, the Backyard Brawl. I think there's better teams in other rivalries than those two, but there's not a rivalry in college football where people hate each other more.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
We live right in the heart of it, and best friends will yell at each other and scream at each other based on that game.
Absolutely.
So it brings out the best and worst of people in this region. So Backyard Brawl seemed like a slam dunk. I know there's better teams and better rivalry in rivalry games. There's, I'm sure they'll get picked here soon, but I love the Backyard Brawl every year.
Yeah, that's absolutely an awesome pick.
And please keep it. Can we keep it now? Can we get it scheduled either first game of the year or last game of the year? Can we get it rectified?
It definitely needs to be that. If that was every year, I'd watch it every year for sure. I mean, the atmosphere alone was just awesome. So with my third pick in this one, I'm going to take the Red River rivalry. My grandfather that lives in Oklahoma is a big Oklahoma fan, and I remember as a kid he used to send me I had this little mesh blanket. It was stupid, and I never used it to cover up with. It was just like a decoration, but it was an Oklahoma blanket. So as a kid, I used to always watch Oklahoma, Texas, and I loved it, man. I mean, that's when Texas was better than Oklahoma for the majority of those games as well. And I was rooting so hard for Oklahoma to win, I can remember. And they are just very entertaining games. And now I don't know the answer to this, honestly. Do they play every year or no?
Yeah.
Okay, so
everyone in the Big 12 plays everyone in the Big 12 every
year.
So.
Okay, so yeah, I definitely will be keeping an eye out for that one this year as well. But I had to go with the Red River rivalry just because I remember as a kid always watching it.
No, that was a solid pick. I think last year's game was unbelievable. You had Casey Thompson and Williams, right? Williams, who's out at USC
Caleb
now.
Williams, yep.
Unbelievable. Those just trading blows back and forth. I think I don't remember what the total was, but I think it was around 100 points.
Yeah, so an over's a lock.
Yeah, those teams just don't play defense, and it's awesome to watch. So my third pick is not. I don't think it's an active rivalry because I don't think they're on each other's schedules for a while. I got Catholics versus convicts.
Oh, that's such a good one, though.
Notre Dame versus Miami. I think it's a 30 for 30 on it. It is such a crazy rivalry. The story about the guy making the shirts and getting arrested for selling them, but also making so much money.
Yeah,
just two completely different. I mean, again, it's an older. The 30 for 30 is a little bit older. It talks about it in the 80s, the late 80s, and just two different cultures. You know, you had the choir boys of Notre Dame and the guys who were going out and partying every night in Miami. So, I just love the name of the rivalry, honestly, more than the teams playing it. But I think that would be something that cool if they brought that back to maybe not every year, but like every other year.
Yeah, absolutely. I like that one a lot. With my fourth pick, I'm going to take Miami versus Florida State. There's something about it. And recently it hasn't been as good as it was. Definitely. I mean, Florida State's terrible still. And Miami, they're supposed to have a decent year, so we'll see how that goes. But it used to be a lot better back in the day, around 2004 with the Orange Bowl. And, that was their rematch or whatever it was. Before that, it was the wide left kick in 2002. And so I'm just super I used to love the U as well. My dad used to have a pendant for his necklace, and it was the stork from the Miami Hurricanes.
Yeah.
And I just remember always trying to watch Miami games since I ever saw that stork as a little kid. And I never knew what it was. He told me, and then he was like, yeah, I love to watch them. They're gritty, is what he said. He said that they're dirty and they're gritty. And that's why he liked them. He said they played football. And so I would always watch that. But with my fourth one, I'm going to go with Miami Hurricanes versus Florida State.
With my fourth pick, I'm going to go a little unique here. I'm going to go Iowa versus having a good offense. This team just can't put up points to save their life.
Okay.
They scored 7 points against South Dakota State. That wasn't a touchdown. They kicked a field goal and had 2 safeties. This team's offense is so bad. The thing is, they actually have a good quarterback in Spencer Petras, but they just stink at offense. And I believe the head coach's son is the offensive coordinator, so that's probably why he hasn't got rid of him yet. But they need to, because they stink, and their offense has stunk for a while. Even when they had Kittle and Fant and all those guys,
didn't matter.
Like you were just lucky to dump it down to one of those tight ends and hope they got 8 yards on a play, because they can't score.
Absolutely. That is hilarious, actually. I wish I would have came up with something that clever, so props to you for that. With my last one here, I'm going to do something a little more. It used to be bigger, and then it came back, and now I don't know if it'll come back again, but Pitt Penn State. I love Pitt Penn State so much, just from being here. Half of our friends are Pitt, the other half are Penn State. You and I including Myers, are probably the only 3 I know that don't root for one of those 2 teams or West Virginia.
Yeah.
So that's why it's so nice, because we just get to sit back with our legs up and just let them go. We're seeing who's bleeding first, who's yelling what, who's calling someone a name, and it is great. I love it. And
I might not actively root for Pitt, but I will actively root against Penn State.
I mean, I do too. So I'll be rooting for Pitt as well in that game. Penn State, that's Pedo Valley.
State Penn.
Yeah, so they will be getting no love from me, but that is where I'm going with number 5 here.
There is a big one still on the table. I want to take it so bad, but there are some.
There's a lot of big ones left.
There's one I'm looking at, and I don't know much about it. I just love the colors, so I think I have to take it. And that's USC versus Notre Dame.
Good pick.
I don't know much.
That's on my list as well.
I don't know much about the history of the game, but I just love the color clash. Blue and like a Vegas gold versus the red and like yellow of it's such a great color game no matter how they wear their jersey combo. That's my pick. That's my last pick. I can't give you much about. I think it might be a great game. I don't know if they play this year.
Oh, that would be very
I think they do a rotation.
Did.
I think they do a rotation with Stanford, USC, and Stanford flip-flop years with Notre Dame. I don't know if they play this year or that's next year, but if it is, I will definitely be watching that one. Love the colors. Always love a good color game. So
absolutely.
My 5 are the Iron Bowl, the Backyard Brawl, Catholics versus Convicts, Iowa versus Scoring Points, and USC Notre Dame.
And my 5 are Michigan versus the Ohio State. Michigan stinks. 2, Army Navy. 3, Texas Oklahoma, the Red River. 4, Florida State Miami. 5, Pitt Penn State.
I think we had 5. Each of us had 5 good picks. Some of the extra ones I had before we run out of time here. The Deep South's oldest rivalry, Georgia and Auburn, dates back to 1892. The Holy War, BYU, Utah, 3rd Saturday in October, Alabama, Tennessee. Bedlam, Oklahoma versus Oklahoma State. Just bet the over in that game and forget about it. Those teams will just throw the ball up and down the field. Although, crazy stat, I know Oklahoma has the better program. Oklahoma is 90, 19, and 7 all time in that series. 90-19. That's hardly a rivalry.
That is barely a rivalry. That's why I had such a hard time taking Ohio State and Michigan, because as far as my life's concerned, it's just we beat them most of the time.
I also have Harvard, Yale, and probably my favorite name for a rivalry is Georgia Tech. It's called Clean, Good Old-Fashioned Hate.
Yeah.
I love that name.
I had one other. I don't know if you did name it. If so, I'm sorry if I missed it. Nebraska versus Oklahoma, but we're not talking about the 1940s here. So I just had that as well. But yeah, that was a great list on your behalf. The Iowa, I loved that. That was my favorite pick.
They hate scoring points.
Absolutely.
They'd rather punt 10 times a game and put up a field goal. All right, guys, we're back with the big game previews of college football week 2. First one, noon, Alabama goes into Austin. It's a noon kickoff on Fox. Texas, I think they cover 20 points. Alabama's a 20-point favorite. I love Texas plus 20. This is a big game for Steve Sarkisian, a former Saban assistant. I think he has to utilize Bijan Robinson effectively to be able to hit that number, but I think Bama pulls away late, but I'm hoping like Texas is down like 26 late in the 4th, and they just sneak in a touchdown or something late.
Yeah, so I also have Texas covering 20.5.
Mm-hmm.
I got it at 20.5. It probably dropped down to 20, you said. I think that the atmosphere is going to be a lot. I think they're going to play their asses off. They're going to do everything they can to try and keep it as close as possible and not get humiliated. And I love Texas to cover that 20.5.
The line seems a little bit fishy to me, being at 20 and not over 3 touchdowns. Feels like they want you to take Alabama minus 20 because it's within a football number. But no, I like you said, Texas plus 20. It's telling me to bet that with that number.
Yeah.
Second game, number 24 Tennessee is at number 17 Pitt. Tennessee is a 6-point favorite. The over-under is 67.5. I love under 67.5. I love the under. Everything, and then for the game, Tennessee -6 is what I'm taking. And I'm taking this because everything is telling me to take Pitt. Tennessee's defense is shaky. Pitt can just run the ball down their throat. Offensively, Tennessee's going to try to come out and sling it. I think Pitt has a great pass rush. Everything is telling me to take Pitt. That's when I always go opposite. And I have a pretty good track record of hitting that. So I'm thinking Pitt. I'm going to flip-flop, opposite brain, Tennessee -6.
I don't hate that idea that you do, because a lot of the time I think the same thing and think that I should do it, and I never do, and it ends up, if I would have done it, it would have worked out for me.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, I am going to take Pitt to cover 6.5. That's what I got them at least on FanDuel, but I placed this bet a couple of days ago. I just think that Tennessee's Swiss cheese defense is going to be too much. I think that there's a lot of holes on that defense. Granted, they're playing in the SEC, so their defense, what looks bad, might actually be decent compared to, ACC talent. I'm not really too sure. I like Hooker. I think he's great.
Mm-hmm.
But I also like Slovis. I like their run game. I like Pitt's O-line, and I like Pitt's defense better. So I'm just going to take them to cover the 6.5. What if they did not? Would it surprise me? Absolutely not. After last week when they screwed me, nothing will. Nothing will.
No, that Pitt defensive line has to step up in
Absolutely.
that game, because if they let Hooker sit back there and throw, it's going to be ugly.
Yep.
Game number 3, Iowa State travels to Iowa. Iowa is the 3.5-point favorite. I don't know why anyone thinks Iowa's going to score more than 3 points. Iowa, that's a 4:00 game on the Big Ten Network. Give me Iowa State plus 3.5. Iowa, like I said this earlier in the draft, Iowa scored 7 points. That's not a touchdown. That's a field goal and 2 safeties against South Dakota State. Give me Iowa State. If Iowa State scores a touchdown, you have to feel good that they're going to cover the game, because I don't know if Iowa has the capacity right now to score 2 touchdowns.
Yeah. I'm going to agree with you. I'm going to take Iowa State getting 3.5. Also, side note, I love the under of 39.5. I just don't, I don't see a lot of scoring in this game, especially from Iowa, as you said. So I love the under, and it's actually -105 on FanDuel. I have it up right here. So I'll probably be putting that into a parlay of some sort in the near future. But I mean, Iowa, what are we doing, huh? I mean, what are we doing?
It's so pathetic.
You guys suck.
It's so bad. Their offense just it looks like they're running 2 different offenses sometimes. Sometimes they'll just go to their typical I formation, single back, and then other times they'll just try to spread it out, and there's no rhythm to the offense. There's no consistency. It's really bad right now.
Yeah.
Next game,
I think that they're terrible. So sorry, just wanted to add that again.
Their defense is great. They'll be able to stop teams, but they're fine punting the ball 10 times in a game.
That's how they are all the time, though. I feel like that's how they've been for the last 8 years.
Yep. 4th game, Kentucky at number 12, Florida. This is a 5.5-point game. Florida is the favorite. 7 p.m. on ESPN, prime time. Give me Mayo Coffee. Give me the boys from Kentucky. Will Levis. I said it before, Florida got lucky, and it's a letdown spot for them after beating Utah. You saw the jubilation after they beat Utah. That stadium was rocking. The fan base was amped. The players were amped. Hard to get settled down and have to go against a tough Kentucky team. Florida very well might win the game, but I think if they do, it'll be similar to last week, where they just score a late touchdown to go up 3 or 4 points.
Yeah, I'm taking Florida to cover 5.5. I'm not buying Kentucky. I'm just simply not. I want to see more. I know I like that Miami of Ohio team, but come on. I mean, did I really think that they're going to beat Kentucky? No, of course not. I thought they might have covered the 17.5, which they weren't far off, really. They had a good shot to do that until late.
If Chris Rodriguez was in that game, it would have been a whole different story.
Probably.
Would have been a 40-point game.
Probably. But I think AR-15 is better than Will Coffee Mayo, so I'm going to take Florida. I think quarterback play will matter.
I think this is a prove-it game for Will Levis. I think he shows up.
I hope not. I absolutely hope not.
Game number 5, USC minus 7.5. They're headed to Stanford. That's a 7:30 kickoff on ABC. I got to take USC. I think Lincoln Riley, I know it's outside of a touchdown, but Lincoln Riley's ready to pour it on the Pac-12. I think they started a little slower than people would have liked against Rice last week, working out the kinks, a lot of new pieces playing their first game together. I think Lincoln kind of saved some stuff. I think he saved a little bit, He has some leftovers for the Stanford Cardinal here. I think he's going to have some trick plays, some new looks, some things he's been working on over the long summer. Give me USC minus 7.5.
So ultimately, I agree. USC minus 7.5. I think they'll cover that with ease as well. That being said, don't be shocked. I wouldn't touch a first quarter on this game. I might not even touch the first half on this game. I think come third quarter, the doors are going to get blown wide open, though. Yeah. So it's going to be one of those games where nothing really develops until the second half to me. But I do like USC to cover 7.5. I could see them winning by 3 scores.
Mm-hmm. Last game, number 9, Baylor heads to number 21, BYU. BYU is favored by 3. That's a late game, 10:15 kickoff on ESPN right after Kentucky, Florida. I'm going with Baylor. I don't really know much about the game, to be honest. I looked at some things. They basically said they're very similar teams. Both have strong offenses. Both have strong offensive lines. Just give me the dog. I'll say it's a tight game. Who knows? But I'd rather be safe with my 3 points than having to get 3 points. So,
yeah, I'm going to take Baylor as well. Actually, on a money line, I'm not even going to bet the points. I just think they're going to outright win the game. But if you want to be safer, take the points, obviously. Baylor's offensive line is very good. It's really good. And their defense played great. I know they played a nobody, but their defense is very good. They got a lot of guys returning to it. I think Baylor's a tough team this year, and they're going to contend in the Big 12. So I'm taking Baylor just outright to win this game.
There you have it. Those were the big game previews, and we'll be right back with our full Week 2 cards.
All right, guys, we are back with our Week 2 cards, and anyone watching this that would be looking for any advice or something to place, keep in mind, I'm at 33%. This guy over here is very close to 50, very close to 50%. So just keep that in mind here. I went 5 out of 15. I think he went 14 out of 30, right?
It was 15 out of 32. 15 out of 32.
15 out of 32. Okay, so his percent is a lot better, and he played more than I did. That being said, I actually have these first 5 that I'm about to read you guys. I have parlayed right now on DraftKings for $25 together. Alabama first quarter minus 6.5 versus Texas. I think that they're going to come out and they're going to score early. That doesn't mean that I don't think Texas is going to stay in that game. I'm not saying that at all. I earlier took them to cover the 20.5, but I think at the end of the first quarter, Alabama will be up by a touchdown. Miami first quarter to cover 7 versus Southern Miss. Worst case scenario, I get a push there, I feel. I mean, if they're up 7 at the end of the first, give me my push. I'll take a push every day of the week over them not covering it. But we're talking about Southern Miss here, and Miami looked great in week 1. My next one, Notre Dame first quarter minus 6.5 versus Marshall. Notre Dame's going to come out firing. After what happened with Ohio State, Freeman's going to have those guys ready. And I think they're going to put it on Marshall, God bless, because it's going to get ugly. This one, Trey, I know you're not going to like this. Florida first quarter just to be winning. It's a half point. So just to be winning at the end of the first quarter, I have Florida right now versus Kentucky. I think that they're going to come out feeling some energy after that Utah win and be all hyped up. And I think that they're going to come out and just have a slight lead after the first. And the next one that I have, and this will end my parlay, but not my card. This will end my parlay. I have Michigan first quarter to cover 13 versus Hawaii. Did you guys watch Hawaii? Anybody?
So bad.
They are so bad. That one right there is the one I feel the most confident about, unfortunately, because I hate Michigan. They are going to destroy Hawaii. It's not going to be good. And it's in Michigan to make matters worse. So right there is my parlay. 25 pays 600 on that if it hits on DraftKings. Next, we're moving to the rest of my card. Texas to cover 20.5. We touched on this already, and that was my pick. I am betting that as well. I think that they will cover 20.5. Like Trey said, it could be, up 26 and they get a little garbage time touchdown to make it 19 and, the game's over. Mm-hmm. Whatever the case could be. I wouldn't be shocked if they kept it close. I mean, there's energy down there in Austin. I mean, they are fired up probably right now waiting for this, and it's still 48 hours away. Next, we have Florida covering 5.5 versus Kentucky. I love that pick. I love it. I love it. I know you don't. I know you're going to just say, dude, shut up. Will Levis, he drinks coffee with mayonnaise. I don't care. I love Florida in this game. I think they win by 2 scores. My next pick, I have Baylor getting 3.5 versus BYU. Here, I took the safer approach, but if you want money line, I love that as well. Baylor's tough. Their offensive line is very good, and their defense played great. I'm not too sure what to think of BYU yet, but I really love Baylor. I'll be riding them hard in a lot of my parlays this weekend. Next, I have, and here we go. Here's the bias pick. Ohio State to cover 44.5. And usually I hate when Ohio State's giving that many points, but they came out pretty flat last week against Notre Dame, and I think that they're going to try and get things clicking against the poor Arkansas State, and it's going to get ugly. I also think the over hits. I want to say it's 66.5 is what I saw it at, I believe. I think that they're going to beat them like 63-10 is my guess. So the spread would hit and the over would hit. And my last pick, I love Vanderbilt getting 13.5 versus Wake Forest. That's one of my favorite picks of the whole card. I think Vanderbilt is very good. I'm not too sure what to think of Wake Forest yet, but 13.5 to lay in a game like that is a lot of points. So I'm going to take the points there and ride with Vanderbilt.
All right. I have 19 plays this week. That's 13 less than last week, but here we go. New Mexico plus 17. They're at home against Boise. Boise State looked absolutely awful against Oregon State last week. The Lobos have a great defense. They shut out Maine. Yeah, it's Maine, but they had a shutout. That's still pretty impressive. They're playing D1 football. Love their defensive coordinator. Love his name, Rocky Long. Dude just sounds tough. Boise pulls away late in this one, but the Lobos do keep it tight. North Carolina, Georgia State over 64.5. North Carolina can score at will, and they couldn't stop a blindfolded Pop Warner team from scoring on them. Arkansas -8 versus South Carolina. I think Arkansas is just a better team. I understand they got some injuries on the back end of their defense, but give me KJ Jefferson. Give me that crowd. They're going to be amped up. It's an SEC game. I'm actually taking Arkansas State plus 45.5. I do think Ohio State scores 50. I do think they score over 50 points. I just think Arkansas State scores twice.
I can't blame you. That's a lot of points to lay, so I get it.
Justin Blackman is a former quarterback of Florida State. I think he has some weapons on that offense. I think he just leads 2 drives, probably, start of the 4th, end of the 4th, that they get points in. So Central Michigan -5. Daniel Richardson's their quarterback. I think he's awesome. He's only a sophomore. He had 424 passing yards and 4 touchdowns against Oklahoma State. CMU just fixed that secondary, gave up way too many yards last week. I think they will against a lesser team in South Alabama. I said it before. I love this pick. Pitt, Tennessee under 67.5. Pitt just wants to run the ball and churn the clock. Tennessee wants to air it out, but I like Pitt's pass rush to slow them down a little bit. App State, Texas A&M over 54. App State will lose this game by more than 20, but they'll also score 3 times. Wisconsin, first half, -9.5 against Washington State. Washington State lost 3 starters from the offensive line. I think they're going to have trouble against the Badgers pass rush. And I think the Badgers are just going to come out and run the ball. They did all right last week. I think they worked out some kinks with this offense. I think they're trying to be a little more open. I love them to score 10 or more in this first quarter and shut out Washington State. Next pick, Air Force at home against Colorado. Colorado gave up over 9 yards a carry against TCU last week. TCU's an air raid team. They give up 9 yards a carry to a team that barely runs the ball. Air Force dominates on the ground. They take up like 40 minutes of game time. Air Force, this is a little brother mindset game for them. You're in state, you have to prove you're not Power 5 like Colorado is. Got to prove something. And I love their quarterback. He has a weird name. Hasig Daniels, Haazig, Hasig Daniels, I believe that's how you pronounce it. He's their quarterback. He's a difference maker. He can even sling it a little bit if they need him to. Michigan State minus 34.5. They're playing Akron. Akron stinks. Just straight. I mean, Hawaii and Akron need to play in the end of the year just because they're the worst two teams in the country. Michigan State already got some kinks out last week against the Western Michigan team when they won 35-13. Akron's not Western Michigan. Akron is bad. Michigan State rules big. I'm thinking like a 50-point, 60-point margin. Kansas, West Virginia over 59.5. I love that number, under 60. Both these teams are offensive minded. WVU will likely score at will for most of the game. And Kansas has actually has a quarterback that can play football. Surprising, but he can play. Jalen Davis, keep an eye on him. I think he'll be a little bit of trouble for some Big 12 defenses as the year goes on. ODU plus 12.5, flat spot for ECU. Already talked about it. I got Kentucky money line plus 190. It's a flat spot for Florida. I got 2 bets on USC. I got halftime at minus 5.5. I got the game at minus 8.5. I think they worked some kinks out last week against Rice. Lincoln Riley's got some stuff up the sleeve. He needs to prove to the Pac-12, hey, I'm the big dog in this part. Here I am. Michigan, first half, minus 31.5. We already talked about it. Hawaii is probably one of the worst teams at the FBS. They're going to have to travel all the way to Michigan and play a great team in the Wolverines. I think I'd like to see Michigan get their quarterback situation figured out, but I still love them no matter who's taking the snaps. Georgia Southern, plus 23.5. Nebraska wins, but it's close for at least 3 quarters. I don't normally do this, but I am taking Auburn minus 23. San Jose State struggled last week against Portland State. Auburn got some kinks out in week 1. They're figuring out a quarterback situation themselves, and that's a far travel for San Jose State to go pretty much across the country. I got Boston College money line at Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech is deflated after losing to their little brother ODU. I think Phil Dracovic and Zay Flowers are one of the best connections in the country. They come out, they connect for 3 touchdowns and light up the scoreboard. And my last pick, Baylor plus 3 at BYU. I think that's the best game of the weekend. I think it's the tightest game of the weekend. Baylor could very well lose that game, but it's not going to be more than 3 points. So at worst, you're going to get a push.
I like it. Absolutely. All but Kentucky. I know that you're just riding with Will Levis. Gotta show love to him.
We'll just hop right into the best bet parlay. Do you have yours first, Hunter, so I can plug it into FanDuel?
I do. You let me know when you're ready for it. You ready now?
Go ahead. Give it to him.
So my best bet of the weekend is USC minus 7.5. I know 7.5 is a scary number that just ultimately killed me last week with Pitt, but this isn't Pitt. This isn't Narduzzi, and this isn't Slovis. This is USC, and they're coming to show you we're here and we mean business. I think they easily, no questions asked, will cover. Like I told you, don't get flustered if in the first half it's tight and gritty, a field goal game, maybe just a 7-point game. Don't be even flustered if they go down by 3 or something. Give it time. The second half, the gates are just going to flood. It's coming. 7.5 USC is my best bet of the week.
I like it. I also have a West Coast game. It's going to be a long weekend for us because we have a night game. I'm taking Fresno State money line against Oregon State. It's basically a pick 'em right now. That's why I'm riding with the money line, not on a spread. Fresno State, they just get up for games like this. They love beating Pac-12 teams. It's big for Mountain West teams to beat Pac-12 teams. It's just big for that conference to get some respect out there. Hank Brockmeyer is a quarterback for Boise State. He looked horrible. He looked like the Bo Nix of the group of 5 last week. He looked horrible against Oregon State. Jake Haener is just going to be much better. He's much more confident. I love that offense down there. Haener's going to throw for probably like 400 yards against a very, very average Oregon State secondary. So give me Fresno State money line, USC plus 7.5. That's plus 269 on FanDuel. You put in a $20 bet. That's $53.91 in the pocket. Let's go. Let's get to 2-0. It's big. If we can keep
got to keep it rolling. Got to keep it rolling. See how long
we can keep it going. We had a hot start last week, so let's just keep it rolling.
So next, we're gonna jump into a segment that Trey came up with that kind of tags along with our last NFL episode. And I really loved it. It was very clever of him how he worded it. But we're doing the Pack Boys Promise parlay. And what this will be is it's going to be a 10-game money line parlay. And each of us are going to pick 5 teams on the money line, and we're going to calculate and give out the odds and let you guys know. And basically, this is the college version of a dollar in a dream of what we did on our last episode. So I'm really excited about this, and props to you, Trey, for coming up with something like this. I love the idea. And if you want, why don't you kick it off since it's your segment?
Yeah, first game, I'm going with Auburn money line. They look pretty good last week. They don't usually look as good as they did last week against, these cupcake games. But give me Auburn at home against San Jose State. San Jose State's got to travel a good bit. So just give me Auburn, better athletes, bigger, faster, stronger.
Yeah, I like it. I'm going to take USC over Stanford. I think they cover the spread, and obviously if they do that, they're going to win the game. Stanford is, they're solid. They're okay.
Mm-hmm.
They're just not USC. They're not coached by Lincoln Riley. They don't have Caleb Williams. They don't have Jordan Addison. They just don't have the talent to keep up. So USC all the way on the money line there.
Give me Notre Dame as my second pick. They are home against Marshall. Notre Dame, Tyler Buchner had a rough start his week 1. I think he looked okay. I think he looked composed at some points, but he's not going to face a pass rush like he did that Ohio State had. So give me Notre Dame. They're back in South Bend. They're going to roll over Marshall with ease.
Yeah, no, I love that pick as well. I know this is one that you don't love.
No.
Florida over Kentucky. I think Florida gets it done. I'm big on them this week. And I know I shouldn't be, but I'm big on Florida. I just think that they're hot right now. I think that they're energetic with that Utah win, and I think that they're going to keep it rolling. I think Florida wins and covers.
Give me Air Force as my third pick going against Colorado. We already talked about little brother game for Air Force. They got to prove something. I love this Air Force team. I think they're experienced. Their quarterback's awesome. I think they run the ball right down Colorado's throat. Colorado can't do anything about it. Air Force rolls big as a military academy team can. Probably like 35-14.
I like it. I love that pick, actually. With my third pick here, I'm taking West Virginia over Kansas, and I'm sure the odds on that probably are minus 1,000 at least. But JT Daniels, realistically, they should have beat Pitt. There's no way he's going to come out at home against Kansas and lose. So this is an easy bet for me to throw in here. I got West Virginia money line.
My fourth pick is my best bet of the weekend, Fresno State money line. They're going to get up for this game. Love Fresno, love Jake Haener. It's going to be a high scoring game, but I think Fresno State is they're just going to be more ready to play this game than Oregon State.
No, I like it. My next one is going to be Pitt money line over Tennessee. I think that there's going to be people that show up and show out. Pitt's defense is going to win them that game ultimately, and they would obviously cover the 6.5 if the money line hits because they're dogs. So I love Pitt. I think that they're going to win solely based on that defense and that pass rush.
My last pick is going to be Mississippi State. I think Mississippi State's one of the most underrated teams in college football. Tyler Rogers is a heck of a quarterback. In Leach's offense, they can throw the ball against any team in the country. Give me the Bulldogs against Arizona. Arizona has actually looked good for a program that last year was really bad. I think Arizona last year was a team that was like asking kids on campus, hey, do you want to come play football? We'll give you, a partial scholarship or something, because that's how bad things were. That's how many people they lost. Give me Mississippi State. I think Arizona looks better this year. Mississippi State, they're a tough team to plan for with that offense. They're like the flip version of like playing Army. You have to like get ready to for the Bulldogs to throw like 60 times on you.
Yeah, absolutely. I, with my last one here, am taking risky. Georgia State over North Carolina.
That's a risky
You heard
one.
it here first. Look, I get it. It's Georgia State, and North Carolina just scored 63 points. But look at that defense by Appalachian State. There was no defense on either side, really.
Yeah.
The Tar Heels just let up 40 points in the fourth quarter last week. They had no prayer against the running game, no hope against the passing. And if you're really looking at it, I think they let up 650 yards of total offense. They made Chase Bryce look like Rodgers or Mahomes. Georgia State's defense did okay against South Carolina. They kept Rattler from getting into his groove and stuff. I'm telling you, upset alert, Georgia State is going to beat North Carolina.
That would be huge. I like that game. Worries me. Pitt worries me, and Florida definitely worries me. So this will be interesting. If you go 2 for 5, I would like that, because I'm pretty confident I'm going to go 5-0. But I would like we revisit this next week.
Gotta get risky. Risk it to get the biscuit.
If we come back to this next week, I have someone to blame. I can point my finger at you.
Oh, absolutely. But if we lose this, I'm sure it will be because of me.
The odds come out to plus 6,741. A $10 bet nets you $684. I have some questions, but it is what it is. I got to trust my co-host. I'm
Georgia State all the way.
Georgia State. I think the Florida one is really what worries me, but we'll keep it moving. Thank you guys for listening. Go ahead.
You want me to give another real quick for the people in case they want to swap?
No, it's your pick. Okay. It's already in. Right. It's locked in.
Okay.
So we'll roll with that. And thank you guys for listening. Like, share, and subscribe, please. My message is going to be the same as it was at the end of the NFL episode. Go watch some football this weekend. Enjoy it. Soak it up. Watch as much as you can. Don't take life so seriously. Hunter wants to say anything.
Yeah, enjoy the football this weekend. NFL's coming. Actually, tonight we're about to get off here and go watch Bills-Rams. And when this comes out, hopefully it helps you guys make some money. And if I cost you guys money, sorry, don't know what to tell you.
Let them know about it on Twitter.
But yeah, go Buckeyes, go Steelers. And thank you guys for watching. And please like, subscribe, and share.
See you guys.
Peace.